he was so aggressive, and he would just constantly scream and kick her, punch her, and so on and so forth. So it was really in order to protect her. And there was no one else, grandparents or anybody else who could, or their dad for that matter, who could come in and take over at any point.
Every day was hell. And my younger daughter was 2 at the time, and she was hiding under the table from Ava at one point. And I remember chasing Ava down my hallway going, "Girl, you're ruining everything."
They both went from very aggressive. I would say my daughter was absolutely socially inept. She had one friend who was way younger than herself. Now, suddenly she started thriving socially. She has, like, right outside our door, she has 5 girlfriends. They play every day, they negotiate, they, come up with ideas. Like, they'll even ring her doorbell and be like, "Can you please come outside? You're the one with all the great ideas." Say my daughter had very autistic mannerisms and very sort of awkward body postures, where you just sense that, there was something was off. She doesn't have that anymore. How's that possible?
The way I feel now, like 2 years on, especially within the last year since the course, like, I am the happiest and most content. Her communication, her social skills, like she loves being social now. And although we're still struggling with communicating to kids in a social situation, like, she will try so hard. Like, she loves people again, and she's happy and she's calm.
So before you dive into this podcast episode, I want to tell you that I have a pretty strange, wild message for you at the end of this podcast episode, at the end of this video if you're watching on YouTube. Because what you're about to hear, the transformations that's happened to Holly and Gro, what you've about to witness, is going to be so wild that some of it you won't even believe your own eyes or ears. And that's why I've recorded a specific message for you at the end of the podcast, because you have to listen to this first, and then I'll talk to you about how I believe this was possible and how it might be for you as well. So watch until the end for my message for you. Welcome to this roundtable conversation. This is incredible for me. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. And miraculously, the 2 women in my community that I really wanted to bring around the table and talk about the ups and downs, the challenges, the victories of turning symptoms around, turning autism symptoms around, and turning our lives around, have agreed to sit down with me and talk with me and each other to you about this. Because there's no doubt in my mind that the way that we turn symptoms around and the messages of autism, it's a challenging journey for everybody. It was for me, and there are some similar challenges that I see in every single mom who take this on, who agree to go on this journey and do not accept that autism is for life, but also are confused about, so then what do we do? What's the next step? There are some traps we fall into. There are some pain points that we hit, some walls that we hit that we need to break through. And I wanted to talk about the process with 2 women who are in the middle of it. And simultaneously, they have experienced incredible changes in their children. And that has required a lot of courage for both of them. So welcome, Holly, and welcome, Gro. I would like for you to start with a little introduction about, we just start with you, Holly. Who are you right now as an autism mom in the turnaround process? Because it was different probably last week, but
yeah. So I'm still in a very up and down kind of moment. Although every time I get overwhelmed and I speak to you, Ninka, or my mum, or sort of anybody that says, okay, so what's happened in a year, and I tell them, and I remind myself like how far we've come, and that this is just a lesson, or this is just that I've neglected myself, or that I've taken too much on, or that. So I'm still in a real learning phase, but we have come really like so far. So I know like by the time I'm done with phase 5 and at the end, like it'll be a real miracle for both of us, not just Ava, my daughters.
And can you, just for those who don't know you and meet you for the first time, could you talk a little bit about who you are, where you live, how old are you, and when did this begin for you, the turnaround process? How did that become your reality?
So I'm Holly and I'm 32, and my daughter Ava is 8, and I live in the UK near Leeds. And my daughter has always been unique, but I've luckily always followed my instinct, and I've not really ever gone down a diagnosis route, and we've always been allowing her to be who she is. But then when she turned like 5 or 6, we sort of noticed like there was definitely things going on, and I sort of went into like a panic mode, and I've had 2 more kids since then, and so it's been a bit of a roller coaster, and I've been, should I be doing this, should I be doing that, and you get pushed either way. And then I was one of those that I joined all these autism support groups. I was like, yeah, I need support, and that's what I thought was the right thing to do. And but something in me always told me like, let her be natural, let her be, she always wants to have no clothes on, and she always wants to be barefoot. This is since she was a baby. I should have really, looking back, followed her lead and trusted her, and luckily I have in ways. And so last year I probably was at breaking point when I was looking through stuff, and the reason that I looked at Barefoot Autism Warriors, because I always can't look at myself as a warrior, as just a mum in general, and the word barefoot, because everyone around here thinks that I'm crazy because Ava just walks through town barefoot. She just never ever wears shoes, and I was like, oh. So I followed the group for a while, and then life got really tough, and I just didn't really know what to do. And that's when you put a post up, and I was like, I'm going to take this. I've got to do something. Like, I think if I hadn't have got to such a bad point in my life and such a worrying point in my own head, you know, like I'm not a sad person. I'm quite a strong person. I'm very emotional, but I'm strong. And I felt depressed last year for the first time in my whole life. And I've been through quite a lot in my life of ups and downs. But last year I thought I will not allow this to take, like, I need to be better for Ava. So that's when I joined the course and dove in. Although it's taken me a long time to get really into it. It took me months and months to figure out that actually I needed to put myself first. And until I started putting myself first in the course, which took me months, nothing worked. And then when I started putting myself first, by Christmas, I was like, Ninka was right. I should have listened from the start. So.
And you've been, it's been such a miracle to watch you and witness your journey. But before we talk to Gro and just let her tell us a little bit about her, could you let us in on some of the biggest victories for you this past couple of months with your daughter Ava? And how old is she? She's 8, and the main things that I've noticed is her memory is like, she's never, like, we all sit around the table at tea time with my husband after work, and he always says, what have you done? And all the kids tell him, and Ava usually for all her life has just said what we did last week, or, you know, because something's at the front of her memory that we did last week that she really enjoyed, or she'll say what we did yesterday, or, you know, something completely random that doesn't make much sense. But now she tells him in depth what she's done that day, and she tells him what we did in the morning, and then what we had for dinner, and then what we did in the afternoon, you know, and she can tell it so well, and it's like, wow. And even he, you know, he really notices that as well. And she's also like a coordination and a strength, because she is hypermobile, but the strength is come on so much. And
there's her communication, her social skills. Like she loves being social now. And although we're still struggling with communicating to kids in a social situation, like she will try so hard. Like she loves people again, and she's happy and she's calm, and you know, she's just an example. We went down to the park and she's going off further from me, and I'm trusting her, and she pressed the button at the crossing and she waited for the green man, and I wasn't even there, and I was like, oh. Wow. She stopped, she waited for the green man, she waited for the beep, and she crossed the road, and you know, that it's so huge, because I would never have even thought she could do that. I thought she would have just crossed the road. Like, it's just things like that are just like, wow, this is so good. Like, that's all coordination. Her brain is calm enough to think about what she has to do. And so yeah, and also I'm probably the best I've ever been in my life in terms of how I feel too. So I think that has a huge impact on her as well. So yeah, things are good, and it's progressed, you know, so well.
You know, for moms out there with eloping kids, I don't know if you remember, any of you, but that feeling of having to have your eyes fixated on your child, or your child will either be in danger, run away, or die. That's how I felt for a long time. That stress, the day you realize that's not an issue anymore, that, wow, my child can actually walk around in the world and not be in danger of dying all the time, that relief is just incredible. Yeah. So yeah. Gro, when you listen to Holly and you think about your darkest valleys, what's changed and why is it important?
My darkest valleys have been quite a few, I would say. The first really dark one was when I had my second child. So my situation is that I'm alone with two children, and they're both autistic. And one is 8, the other one is 11, just to give a bit of background. Mm-hmm. And the one who's 11 got the diagnosis at the age of 5. And I knew something was going on for a long time. That was a struggle in itself, to try to convince the mainstream kindergarten that we actually needed some kind of help. And so then when his sister was born, it was a pretty tough ride for a long time, because again, I was alone with them, and he was eloping constantly, trying to jump out of the window, and she had colic. So the two of them together was, you know, a really dark phase. Then 2 years ago, I was at the verge of a nervous breakdown. I would say I was in the middle of a nervous breakdown. And I decided to see if I could put my son in an institution. For me to get to that point is really unbelievable to me that I ever got to that point, especially because I don't trust the system. And even to put him in a school was a big stretch for me. But I felt that I couldn't look after my daughter because he was pretty much taking up the whole room all the time. And he was
you're in Denmark, you're a very alternative, holistic entertainer. You're this rebel woman, just to put it in context for those who don't.
Yes.
Okay.
So for me to get there, unbelievable. But I did not feel that I could protect her. And he was so aggressive, and he would just constantly scream and kick her, punch her, and so on and so forth. So it was really in order to protect her. And there was no one else, grandparents or anybody else who could, or their dad for that matter, who could come in and take over at any point. Also, I needed breaks. And I remember just calling the, what do you call it? The commune, the state authorities.
Yeah.
When I was literally shaking so much, I could not move. Like I was sitting in a corner, I was shaking so hard. Yeah. Did I answer your question? I have.
Yeah, that was your darkest moment.
Yeah.
And describe for us all the update you gave us recently, because that scenario is very familiar to almost every autism mom in a dark phase. You just have it extra because you have 2 children, you're alone, you are in a completely crazy situation. We're going to come back to what happened after you.
I did say they both have the diagnosis. They both have autism, and he has ADHD.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to the institution and what happened there. But recently you, just to, like with Holly, just take a quick jump into the now, and then we'll go back into the journey. The update that you shared with the community and the sisters in the turnaround process, could you describe for our listeners what you said to us, what you wrote about your current situation with your kids?
Yeah. To sum it up, I finally let go of control. I finally, after having listened to the Heal Your Cortisol Stress Type audio in phase 1, I would say I probably listened to it about 12, 13 times. And you're talking about basically like, what do you need to let go of? To really, like, if you're a cortisol stress type, you may have to do nothing for a while. You may have to let go of perfectionism. And I listened to it that many times and I thought, wow, that's really great. I totally get it. She's right on point. But for me to actually let go, for me to actually get quiet and allow myself to just sit, to be still, was incredibly hard. I mean, it's taken me more than a year. But once I did that, I started basically hearing God speak to me. And what he told me was, you're going to have to let go of perfectionism. You're going to have to let go of ego. That's my doorbell.
You can answer that because this is the round. Okay.
Yeah, it's not important. So once I did that, I started seeing major changes in both children. Also, I realized that there were certain generational patterns in my family that I absolutely had to break. And so I became very aware of that. And that was especially having mothers that were always on the go, always on the run for themselves, and not willing to really like sit down and be present with their children and truly connect. Once I started truly connecting with the children, that's when amazing changes started to happen. They both went from very aggressive. I would say my daughter was absolutely socially inept. She had one friend who was way younger than herself. Now, suddenly she started thriving socially. She has, like, right outside our door, she has 5 girlfriends. They play every day. They negotiate. They, come up with ideas. Like, they'll even ring her doorbell and be like, "Can you please come outside? You're the one with all the great ideas," which a year ago was completely unimaginable. Like, I couldn't even send her somewhere on a play date because I did not know how that was going to go down. They're extremely loving towards me, extremely loving. They're grateful. There's such a display of love and gratitude. My son went from having extreme OCD symptoms. He never got diagnosed with OCD, but it was extreme. If you put something on his side of the table and he knew that you had touched it with your hands and you didn't know whether or not you'd washed your hands, for example, he would freak out and scream and scream and scream. And that's completely gone. Within less than a year, completely gone. They're no longer aggressive. I'm no longer aggressive. So basically, I had to really, really start with myself. Once I once I got myself right, everything else started flowing. There's so many things. I mean, you know, Thurgood makes sure to go outside and do his grounding every day. They understand the importance of, you know, food, and he's the greatest label detector I've ever met. I mean, he's better than me. He's like, Mom, there's sunflower oil in this. Didn't you see that? You know? Yeah. I mean, they're blossoming and developing at a very, very rapid speed now. But I had to really let go of some things. And in actual fact, I had to trick myself and say, Gro, it's only going to be 3 months that you can't make plans for the future. It's only going to be 3 months that you have to remain in the present now. Because I couldn't do it. I was completely unable to do it. And I tricked myself, and it was like, that's what you promised yourself. That's what you know. So now that's
so wild. That's so wild. Because these are the things that when our children present like that and we start involving the system, and they're aggressive, OCD, and malfunctioning in social settings, these are the children that will be put in an institution, and we then will lose them because we then no longer have the influence over what they eat, when we see them, how they're brought up. And so I am so excited to talk to you about that choice that you didn't make as well. I was just noticing, Holly, you nodding when Gro was talking about parents not being present. So I'm just wondering, when you listen to Gro and her story, what thoughts and feelings come up for you about your journey?
Well, I can sort of relate to some of what you said, Gro. And when me and my mum have always had a very similar connection to how me and Ava have. Like, I can feel intuitively how she feels. So I know that Ava feels, like I can see that Ava feels what I feel. It's like a huge connection. I can ring my mum up and go, what's wrong? What's wrong? I can feel you, like, you're sad, what's wrong? And so all my life and all my childhood, my mum was very up and down. And so was my life, so was my heart and my feelings, because I was so connected to her. But obviously we didn't know this then. I didn't know, so we had some trauma and very up and down relationship, especially in my teens. So when I started this course and I was listening to it a few months, and I can't remember who said it now in the Telegram group, but they were like, I'm gonna let go of my mum, and I've let go. She had let go of her mum, and she didn't want to have communicate with her, and I was like, I'm gonna have to make a decision here, because I'm trying to free myself and make my load lighter, and I have to move on from some traumas that I have, and me and my mum's relationship and our connection and the way I feel how she feels sometimes, I've got to either let go or I'm going to forgive and accept that she'll have trauma and da, da, da. So, I used to have a bath and try to heal the trauma. So every time I thought of my mum or thought of an incident or an emotion that came with it, I let it flow. Whereas before I was just like, no, I won't think about that today. But now I'm just like, I started to release all this emotion, and I was like, I want my mum in my life. Like, I love my mum so much. And then I realized that I'd sort of selfishly thought, she shouldn't have done this and she shouldn't have done that growing up. And then I thought, actually, my mum had a really tough beginning too. As beautiful and loving as my grandparents are, they had a young, and back then it wasn't really a thing. And then they were sort of brought up in a, everybody seems to, in the family, seems to have this early years trauma. And I know that, up to 2 years old especially is when you need that love and that care and that stability. And my mum, I know, didn't really have it. Just nobody's fault, but she didn't. So she's traumatized. And I was like, she's the same as me. You have to forgive this. I'm moving on from this. Like, it's all in the past. And, we've learned lessons. And so I literally just made a decision one night in the bath, because that's my safe place and my calm place, and it's for me. and it's my bubbles and my candles and it's always been my safe place. And I was like, I forgive her. I forgive everything, and I'm sorry, and I forgive myself for the way I treated you sometimes. Let's only ever move forward and make a new start. And this is, I just did it sort of in my head, and since then, literally the light, I feel so much lighter, and I've never loved my mum as much, and it's made a huge difference to me, like, and the way we connect, and the way Ava connects to her, because Ava's got really bad what's it called, separation anxiety, but now I've so close to my mum again, she will actually go to my mum. She's the only person Ava will stay with but me, so I'm getting that break because Ava trusts her and loves her like I do, you know. So it's that's a huge thing, is forgiveness for me. Like, it's how I've moved on and how I've calmed myself, and she's there for a support, and I support her, and we're really close now. So I don't know if I've waffled on about,
no, that's
but
very,
I was like, it's such a huge point to me, and it's such a relief to my body and my soul and my system. Like that was probably one of the biggest things I did, and to help myself, and it really helped Ava. And they're the sort of changes I saw in Ava. I was like, oh, it's always, I keep going, oh yeah, Ninka, she's so right all the time. I should have put myself first from the start. So
why is it that it's so hard for us as women to choose to be kind to ourselves, to choose to parent ourselves in a kind way, and allow ourselves sleep and food and grace and setting boundaries, you know?
It took me so long to realize. It's unbelievable, really. And I'm like, why did it take you so long? It's simple, isn't it? It's quite simple if you think about it. Like, you can't perform the best, you can't be the best of yourself unless you look after and love yourself and cherish yourself and honor what your body has done for you. Like, I've had 3 big kids and big belly and home births with nothing to help here in my living room. Like, my body has done so much, and I was like, it just clicked. It just started clicking. I was like, and I used to, when I was a teenager, because I was a bit of a wild one, you know, I used to party, and I was like, all that I've put my body through, and it's still done that. It's still let me give birth naturally. It's still done everything for me. And I'm like, that it just, when things start to click like that, I'm like,
yeah. Deserve so much. Yeah, respect. Let's respect that body. It's just so beautiful. How does that body that's allowing these things to happen, Gro, in your from your perspective, how does the female body and the mom and her body play a role in autism symptoms expressing and autism symptoms slowly leaving us and slowly becoming a thing of the past?
100%. 100%. I mean, I would even say my daughter had very autistic mannerisms and very sort of awkward body postures, where you just sense that, you know, there was something was off. She doesn't have that anymore. How's that possible? You know, from a sort of mainstream perspective, how is that possible? Just by me changing. That's when she changed. That's when her whole, you know, that's when her energy turned open, when I started respecting myself. And number 1, 2, and 3 for me was getting to bed on time. How hard can that be? That can be pretty hard. And
what's number 3? So bed on time?
Bed on time is number 1, 2, and 3 for me.
Oh, okay.
Really. And yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I saw changes in the beginning of the process. and it's been what, 14 months for me now. I saw changes in the beginning, because I would do the, brain priming exercises. I would do the grounding. I would do many things, and I would have all these, self-care rituals and everything. I was pretty good at that. I was pretty good at checking boxes. I did not want to admit to myself that what I was doing was checking off boxes. It was literally the moment when I said, you know what? You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. It's all about you feeling good. I saw how I had all these distractions all the time, and they all seemed to make a lot of sense. So of course we're going to move. We're going to live in the countryside, because, this is not the ideal, place to live. This is not the optimal place to bring up, these children. But then I realized, what does it, first of all, what does it require financially? That would put me in a hole, that would put stress on me, that would affect them, all of these distractions that I kept having. It was only, and it really, I still, this morning, even every single day, I am amazed that this was possible for me. This, I felt that, yes, I'm changing, but now I feel like I am transforming. I am not yet transformed. God is not through with me yet, but seriously, what has happened in the past, I would say 2 months, is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I never thought that possible. I really had to just say, what do you feel like doing, Gro? Okay, you're gonna cook. Obviously, you're gonna cook, nurturing food. But then you're gonna go and you're gonna do some grounding in the garden, and then you're gonna sow some seeds and plant some plants, and you're gonna water them, and then you're gonna go and take a nap, and then you're gonna listen to an audio, and then you're gonna be with the children, and you're gonna be fully present. No, you're not gonna think about starting a business. You're not gonna be thinking about moving anywhere. You are simply just going to be right here, right now, because that's what they need. And that's when they started transforming.
Goosebumps. And
because I can honestly say, yes, circadian rhythm is very important. Grounding is very important. And they've been doing that.
But it's not enough. But it's not
it's a great step of the way, but it doesn't quite cut it, right? Because it was only when I allowed myself to cry, when I allowed myself to get soft. And yes, I've been in phase 3 for a very, very, very long time. It's been so challenging. It's been so challenging for me to become soft and feminine and not constantly be in the, and that's what I come from as well. Women that are constantly eager to tell the world what they have achieved and I became a midwife, for Christ's sake.
Oh, yes,
alone with these 2 children. It's a 42-hour work week or school week. It's completely inhumane, plus homework, but I did it. But I was completely run down, and I was so run down that I was unable to feel much. I was unable to feel much, even for my children. It's a horrible thing to admit, but I couldn't really open my heart because I was in a survival state.
Yeah, I felt the same thing. That numbness towards my children was really one of the most shameful things to admit and feel. So for those who don't know about the phases, sometimes we talk about, I'm in phase 1, phase 2, stress types and all those things. Just want to quickly mention that when we go through the turnaround process together in the setting of the Autism Turnaround Program, we start with phase 1, which is working on the mindset and the wake-up call. What is it that autism wants for us to change? It's an awareness test. It's a consciousness test. And we need to heal the nervous system in phase 1 as well. And we need to heal our stress type. There are several podcasts about these things as well that I can link to. In phase 2, we are dealing with nature deficiency and healing that and tools for that. And then in phase 3, we are spending around 4 months on understanding our body, the body's language, our biotype, how to interpret the feedback we get from the body, how to remove the triggers from trauma and stress in the body, how to heal our inner child, how to implement it in relationships. And a lot of work there on how, because the way that we eat and the way that we drink water or not actually plays a huge role in, we can tell a lot about how well we know each other from that, and sleep and the symptoms that we have. And then in phase 4, we change the environment. In phase 5, it's all about biomedical, bio-individual nutrition. And that is very specific training in that. So just for those who don't know. But I'm wondering, I think people will say, that sounds pretty awesome. How in the world are you affording that? Because I want to do that as well. But how do you make ends meet? So for both of you, how do you stay present and not stress and freak out about money and actually make a living too?
Well, I don't. When I had my second child, my husband, obviously not everybody, I know everyone's got different circumstances, but I'll just tell you I came similar to Gro from my mom and my nan, who I'm close to, and my great nan. Strong women that work, because my nana was, came around when women were only just starting to sort of get rights, and she created a huge business, and she's done incredible. Like, she is an amazing woman. So when I had my second child and I had a few months off, and then I was finishing my degree, and she was like, right, back to work, get back to work, you've got to earn your money, you want your own things. And something in me was, I don't want to leave my kids. Like, I don't want to leave Ava. I'd started noticing symptoms, and I've had this other baby, and I don't really want to go back there. Like, and my husband was like, listen, I'll work like a dog, and you can be at home with the kids, because they need you. And he was always saying this to me, and I was like, no, I'm a strong, independent woman, and I need to work. I'm my own woman. Had this. And it never felt real, but I just said it. Like, it wasn't really me talking. It was just everything that I'd always learned that I thought I should be doing. And then when my maternity leave was over, I was like, no, I'm not going back. And I never have gone back to work. And that was really big for me, because I'd finished a degree that I got pregnant with Ava in. And I finished it, and I did well with it. And I was, and I loved my job. And I was going to do a master's in music therapy, and I had all these plans, but I was like, no, like, especially Ava, like, there's something going on with it. Back then I was thinking, there's something going on, like, she needs me and my kids, and so I took a step back, and my husband worked like an absolute animal to keep us afloat. But we don't have like a lot, and obviously with the course, like, we're buying organic and clean meat and grass-fed, so everything's we just have to, we just are really careful, and we live quite a simple. We don't go on big fancy holidays, we don't buy fancy clothes, we do charity shop stuff. And this year I've got a greenhouse. I've not got a huge garden, but I've got I live on an estate. I live on a council estate with our own home. We own it, but we've got an apple tree, a plum tree, a fig tree. We've got a green, and that's like, we'll invest in that, and then we'll, we don't have to buy Waitrose £3 for 4 tomatoes, just things like that. We've adjusted, and we just are not extravagant. And he works so hard, and I feel every day I wake up and I'm like, I am the luckiest woman in the world, because I know so many women don't have husbands that will do that, and a lot of men expect equality but if you do have the opportunity to step back, I would always, right now, especially doing the course, or if you're trying to change symptoms in your kid, I would try to be with them as much as you can and not worry about work or anything, if you have that option. Because that connection, like Gro was saying, my connection with Ava only really started when I was dropping her at nursery, and she used to cry every day. I was like, this is wrong, but I have to go to work. And I only really connected with her and realised what she needed when I gave up work. And now, because I don't work, we can wake up, and it's like last week when I messaged you, Ninka, I was like, radio aggression, and I was like, okay, Ninka spoke to me, I'm calm. I looked through my journals, which are page-to-page journals, and I have the time to do that because I'm not working. I don't have to think. The only thing other that I do apart from my kids is the course. So I look through my journal and I'm like, okay, today Ava's, and I say to my son who's 2 and my other daughter who's 4, and I'm like, today Ava's struggling, so we're going up to the woods, which is a couple of fields up the road, and we're going to walk barefoot, and we're going to put some calm music on in the woods, and we're going to get the hammocks out, and we have this incredible life where we can just be like, okay, this is a bad day, let's ground, so I hold Ava and we touch and we do breathing, and so I'm so blessed that I have that life, and I know that so many people can't do that, but the way we work financially is that we just don't, we're not extravagant, and we just get by, and summer months particularly are hard because of my husband's jobs, but we just manage very carefully and live in nature, so we don't need a lot. We don't need, you can buy clothes from the charity shop. We have everything we need. We have a warm home, a log burner in winter. We have a beautiful garden, and luckily we have the woods that is up the road that I always think of as my woods, even though it's not. And
that's incredible. That's incredible. Thank you for that insight. And that's a bit of an argument for sticking to your marriage. I didn't manage to do that. I was not in a space where I could make that decision, but that's one of my regrets. Because I do think that it gets much more difficult for us as single moms. Sometimes some people are in a very dysfunctional relationship and there's no other way, but that was not the case for me. But so for you, Gro, how do you make ends meet to turn your child's symptoms around and spend time on that?
Yeah. One of the things that do sometimes work in this country, Denmark, if you're aggressive enough, I guess, which I used to be, is there is some help to get if you have a child who's not going to school all the time, a child who has a diagnosis but isn't going to school all the time, if the teachers deem that it's too much for the child to go to school every day. Now, if I had said it's not good for my daughter to be here all the time, that I wouldn't have gotten any type of help. But because my daughter is only going to school 13 hours per week, I get like full compensation from the government. Yeah. But again, like it's been a fight. It's been a long and very, very, very hard fight. So it's not something that you just get, like, first of all, they were telling me, this is 2 years ago, Thurgood was going to school, but they said, his teacher said he should not be here every day. It's way too much for him. He was there every day, but he was only there for 3 hours. So that's when I called the authorities and said, how can I go to work when he can't be there for more than 3 hours? That's physically impossible. No one is going to hire me for 3 hours. And they said, well, tough luck. That's just the way it is. And that was like one of my many nervous breakdowns back then. And then it was a long, long fight to get them to acknowledge that I really need. And because I am a midwife, I get like full compensation. So I get that what equals a midwifery salary every month. So that, and it's not a lot. It's not a lot when you're a single mom. And yes, we never buy new clothes. And I don't think I bought myself any new clothes for the past at least 2 years. And, again, everything's organic. All the food we eat is organic. And so that really takes up pretty much the entire budget.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. I want to move back to the beginning, back to the symptoms when they were scary and all-consuming. So because those are the symptoms that moms that listen to us will be dealing with: the eloping, the screaming, the tantrums, sleepless nights, lack of communication, lack of bonding, where when we get pregnant, we have this expectation of a family and normal development and bonding, and we don't calculate on having to chase our children to keep them alive. We don't calculate on never sleeping. We don't calculate on endless screaming. Like, people are talking about colic, but having an autistic child is like having a child that's having toddler tantrums plus colic plus fevers plus just desperation all the time, not for weeks, but for years often. So plateaus and regression and these extreme symptoms is a reality, and it often comes back as we're healing as well. Take us back to that time where you were looking at an institution, Gro, and what happened that turned life around for you?
What happened that made me change my mind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We moved from one apartment to another, still in Copenhagen, but that move was so hard on Thurgood that he reacted. I didn't know him. I didn't recognize him. He would just like run up and down the stairs in the new apartment and just get his head stuck in between the stairs and yell and scream constantly. And back then, I would have to place him in front of a screen. Like, he barely watches screen. Like, he barely has any screen time today. But like back then, it was like, okay, 5 hours a day, that's fine, because that's all I can do right now, just to keep him fairly calm while I take care of his sister. At the time, I didn't know his sister had the same diagnosis, but she was also really struggling. His ADHD symptoms were driving her completely insane. So having the two of them in the same house was just, I think my system was in such cortisol overload that many things I don't even remember. Like, I would play CDs in the freezer and just do really crazy things. So what changed actually was, well, nothing really changed for good, I would say, until I started this course. So this is 2 years ago. Things would change a little bit, and I'd start feeling hopeful, but then right back to scratch. And I didn't understand why. What I understand now is that I really needed to get myself right before I would see any lasting changes. Mm-hmm. And I've seen many a therapist. I've seen many a psychologist. I've had quite a bit of, taken quite a bit of plant medicine and body therapies, and I've tried it all. But what they all have in common, the way I see it now, is that they don't deal with any root causes. You come in, you talk about your problems, they'll reflect, whatever you're saying, and you just keep like basically whining about your life and, all the other people that did you wrong and so on and so forth. But it wasn't until I started this process with you, where you are going through these little tasks every single day. Like, you have these routines, you do the grounding and the brain primers and the breath work and like all of these things that send your brain a message that you're worth it, it's okay. You start slowing down in your nervous system and you start actually feeling your feelings. And so that's when things really started to change. It was only again when I really forced myself to be still and to really like sit down and fully connect with my children and not constantly be on the run. In the future, I was in the future and the past. That's when things started happening. But yeah, it's so it was sort of like up and downs all the time. So no real lasting change. But now it's a situation that we can all be here at the same time and we can have a really lovely time. And I'm actually enjoying their company. It's no longer as if I'm pretending to enjoy them. You know, I'm sort of displaying emotion that I'm not really feeling, because that's how you're supposed to be as a mother. You know, now it's like, okay, I actually feel like being with you. Like I'm actually getting something from this meeting and we're actually having a true connection here. So now I see lasting change. And I think also because my nervous system, I was in like red zone, like such an extreme state that I was so short fused and I constantly reacted, you know, snapped. And I was so aggressive. And while I was still in that state, before I started working on myself, really focusing on myself, there was no lasting change to be had, because you can tell yourself, no, you shouldn't scream at them. No, you went too far. But your nervous system reacts and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, at least in my case, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, can we talk about that a little bit? What about you, Holly? Because I remember the shame of regretting having kids when my son's autism symptoms just flared up like crazy when I had my second child. I remember screaming at him one day, which is still so painful for me to think about, but I screamed into his face, "You're ruining my life." And just wanting to end it all for myself and not having the courage to do that because I couldn't leave my children either. What are some of the most shameful and dark moments before, when the symptoms were completely horrible, and actually during this turnaround process? Because let's not kid ourselves, when we are healing, it's painful too. So for you, Holly, what can you share?
I relate to that. Like I and Gro, like we're very like similar with what you're saying. It's insane really, because my nervous system has just always been a wreck. I think a lot from just having kids constantly and being busy and my past traumas and partying a lot, which I thought was great fun, but looking back it was just I'm just hiding from a reality that I needed to sort out. And it's, you know, and as soon as Ava came, I stopped everything. So like I stopped so she was a complete blessing, but I've had some really dark moments, which is why I was searching for help and I found you. And I remember like having my son and thinking, no, she like told me she loved him, and she was like, oh baby, and you know, she'd kiss him, but then she started getting aggressive and angry, and she's not like that. Like she's so gentle. Like she's taught me how to be as kind and gentle. Like she is the nicest kid, you know. She doesn't understand the bully, and she doesn't understand. And I remember thinking, what is this? And everyone was like, it'll be that you've had another baby. I was like, no, she loves him. Like, you know, it's a brother. How can you? But looking back, I think it was a huge thing. Like my pregnancy, I didn't know that I was going to get pregnant. So he was a bit of a surprise, and he was a hard pregnancy. I was poorly, and he was 10 pound 9 when he was born. So they were like, I never had hospital. I never went to the hospital, but I had to go because he was breech. So they started getting involved. They were like, you've got a massive baby. If you have this baby at home, he's going to die. I was like, no, don't be silly. I'm not going to listen to you. And so I was stressed, like, and I completely neglected myself. I was eating rubbish foods and I neglected my girls. And I was like, I couldn't do anything other than just try get through each day, because they were saying that he's going to die. And I was like trying to fight for my right to be at home. I'd only ever given birth at home. And, you know, and then I made the decision to go into hospital on the Monday. On the Saturday, I went into labour. I was like, so I was in labour, and I'd only ever had beautiful labours, but I was like, he's going to die if I have this baby here. But he came fast. He got stuck in my pubic bone, which I managed to release him. But I remember thinking like, oh my God, like this, you know, this baby's going to. And so after that, any comment or any, you know, if he would looked different, in any way. I was like, oh my God, he's going to die, because I was like, I didn't even know I was going to have a boy. I thought it was a girl the whole way through. And so I was just an absolute wreck, basically, the whole way through. And I was a wreck for a long time after him. And I was in a rush to get back to our normality. I wanted to get walking again. I wanted to get back in nature. And I couldn't do much because my body was, you know, needed to recover and I needed to heal. But back then I was like, this was only 2 years ago. Back then I was like, no, you've got to get on. Like, you know, like mum and nana have put in your head, you can get moving, girl, you know? So I just neglected the kids, and Ava picked up on this. Looking back now, I realise massively she's picking up on my self-neglect. She was picking up on my I snapped like that. Don't you do that to me. Why are you doing that to your sister? Pull that down. Why are you touching that? Everything annoyed me. Everything. You know, like, and that just made her go insane. And she used to come up and she'd go like this. And one day she did this on the kitchen side and everything fell off the side and smashed onto the floor. And I remember thinking, that's what I was kicking walls to release this frustration in me. And every day was hell. And my younger daughter was 2 at the time, and she was hiding under the table from Ava at one point. And I remember chasing Ava down my hallway going, girl, you're ruining everything. This is meant to be a good moment. I've got a newborn baby. Why are you ruining every day? And then I remember going, and oh, it makes me really emotional, sorry. And I remember thinking, sorry, what are you doing? You know? What are you doing to yourself? And what are you doing to your kids? You need to find some help and you need to wake up. So I found a therapist. I was like, I need to just release my trauma. And I went to 2 sessions with a therapist, just like Gro said. And I was thinking, this woman is just listening to me whine about my past and about what I'm going through with my kids and this sort of hell that I was living at the time. And she's not really fixing anything. And she's just telling me how to deal with it. She's just telling me how to cope with all this trauma. I don't want to learn to cope with it. I want to heal it. And that's when I was like, we need to dig deeper for me. We need to dig deeper for Ava. We need to find something. And that I was just every day looking for help. And then I found you. But we were some dark moments at that time. I never get out of my head chasing her down that hallway. Like, she's just a kid. It was awful. And I was just so lost. And I never, you know, I forgive myself. And I do forgive myself because I was so lost and so alone. And my husband was out working because I didn't. And I do forgive myself. And I love myself. And I'm so proud of myself and so proud of Ava and my kids that we got through that really horrific time. And the way I feel now, like 2 years on, especially within the last year since the course, like I am the happiest and most content I've ever been in my life. So that, when I say that, it's like, oh, you know. Yeah. So we have been through the dark times, like you and Gro said. Like, I feel that so much, and I can still feel that awfulness that I felt when I did that, when I chased her down the hall, because I'm not an aggressive person, but I was becoming a bit of a psycho, really, you know. I was just so overwhelmed, and I forgive myself for that because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, it's not, you know, and I moved on and I got out of it. So yeah, we've been through hard times, but yeah,
I think that's the taboos that we don't talk about, but every single mom will get to that point of no return, because actually we need to get to the end of our tether, to a place where we actually feel, you know what, I'd rather die.
I remember feeling, if I die, I'm going to have to take Ava with me because no one else can look after her. Like, the other 2 will be fine. They're fine. Like, but Ava, she's going to... So I remember thinking, and probably the worst point, like, if I just drove somewhere and we didn't come back, my other 2 kids would be so much happier. Like, I'm a wreck. She's a wreck. Let's disappear. We can be happy up there and we're free from this hell. I just, all these feelings were like, you have to talk about it, and you have to get, you know, if I can advise anyone, if you have been through that, don't dismiss it. Feel it and work out why you're behaving like that and why your child's behaving like that. at the worst time, even if it was in the past, go back. Why were we like that? What happened? And forgive it and move on and cry it out. You know, I still cry about it now. I've forgiven myself, but I still cry about it, and that's okay. Cry it, get all that trauma away and release. You know,
Well, that's actually a really good point. What would you say, Gro, is the message behind autism symptoms and also this depression and anxiety that can lead us to think we shouldn't even be here anymore? Because I know that what I think about these things and how many different elements of messages that there are, but I would love for you to talk about when we talk about messages behind every symptom, what's the message behind the aggression that you saw in your child and that desperation where we actually don't want to live anymore? Which would be labeled mental illness. You would be hospitalized and medicated as a woman and as a child if you go to the experts to talk about this. But from where you are at now, how do you reckon that's showing up?
Yeah. Your inner child is desperate for attention. That would be the message for me. That was the message for me. Desperate, desperate, desperate for attention, you know? Because when you are in the world and you care about what other people think about what you do and your title and the way you're raising your children and the food that you eat and everything else, you are not really giving a shit about your inner child. Like I just wasn't being kind to myself. And I was always out in everybody else's potential thoughts. Obviously, I couldn't read their thoughts. So these were only potential thoughts and feelings about me. Also, I needed to really take responsibility. Like that was another message for me, to really take responsibility, you know, instead of like, because I felt into victimhood all the time. And like, I felt such pity for myself, you know? So it was just this thing that was done to me, you know? This thing that was, oh no, this happened again. And they're acting this way. And, you know, and it's so funny because now that I look back, I'm like, my sister was saying to me the other day, yeah, you're right. You used to be a real victim. I don't see that in you anymore. And I'm like, no, you're right. I don't feel that way anymore. Like I really see this assignment that I've been given from God as the biggest blessing. I can honestly say it's the biggest blessing. I was saying that to a stranger actually the other day. I was like, I'm blessed with these two autistic children. And she was like, blessed? Okay, you know? But I mean, that's really how I feel. Like they have taught me so much. They came to save me. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I mean, I was in such a bad state. I did consider suicide, definitely. And yeah, I copy Holly. It wasn't getting in a car. It was like getting out in front of a truck with both of the children, because same thing, like, how can I leave these children? There's no one else to take care of them. I'm obviously not going to leave them, but I was in such a deep, deep state of despair, such a deep state.
And that state of despair, fast forward to now, describe your life and your state right now and your children.
It blows me away every day. I honestly, I still can't, like, it's been a long time now. Like I would say it's been at least 3 weeks to a month where I feel a complete change from like being very reactive, and when something happened, like if someone would call me with bad news or, you know, anything that happened, I'd be like, oh no, what are we going to do about this? You know, again, a generational thing. My mom was very much like that. My grandmother was very much like that. Now I'm just like, oh, okay, we'll figure it out. We'll definitely find a solution. It's so I just like feel this calm that I don't even know myself. It's quite amazing. And to go from both children, like first of all, myself being extremely aggressive, angry when I started this process 14 months ago, to now very, very rarely feeling angry. Like, it takes me a lot to get there. And for my daughter to have gone from extremely skinny, barely eating anything, now eating everything I put on the table, both children being extremely loving towards me, respectful towards me, and very, very loyal. They understand. They understand, like, without, well, on an intuitive level, I really believe they both understand what I did for them, or what God helped me do for them, So
Yes.
there's this gratitude. I feel this immense gratitude, and I get this gratitude from them all the time. Thanks, Mom. Thanks for cooking this meal. It's so delicious. Thank you. Like, they really crack me up sometimes, because it's like this morning Thurgood said, thank you for, making sure that we get the healthiest food. And, you're just such an incredible mom.
And how does he and other people look at the way that he was before the aggression and the eloping, and it just not being there anymore? Does he notice? Does other people notice? And in which case, what do they say?
Yeah, everyone notices. Everyone notices. Yeah. He still gets triggered when he's around people that are fake, or that, he can't trust, people that tend to lie and stuff like that. So those particular people don't see much of a change.
Because they are messengers, they flag it up.
But the people that, are really, really close to us, very, very, very close. I have actually at this point very few friends, but extremely, extremely close friends. They see massive, massive change. And Norma, she goes to school, and her teachers are like, what happened? This is a different child. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Praise God. Yeah, exactly. I want to just, Holly, for you, tell me a little bit about the symptoms before and the symptoms after. And then I just want to preface that, because you actually didn't want to come on this interview a couple of days ago.
No.
First of all, you sent some updates about how amazing things were going. And I want to share this because I don't want people to think that it's all an uphill journey towards better times, that it's an up and down journey. It's darkness and it's light, and it's challenges and then big changes, and it's regression and plateaus. Every single mom going through a recovery with her child or a turnaround with her child will experience plateaus and regression. And regression and plateaus are only opportunities for us to get to know the child better, the child's triggers better, and to get to know ourselves better. It's like reminders. I think I told you, it's like an old friend on the way to the airport, checking in to see, are you coming this time? Back to that good old place we know so well, of denial, of just abandoning ourselves, of not being present. And when we open the door, we say, hey, no, I'm actually not coming this time. It doesn't mean that we have to change everything, but that person outside that's trying to take you to the airport, that is the ways of the world. It's the dark side. It is self-sabotage patterns. That side, the dark side that doesn't want us to heal, and also that side in us, notices when we just do things a little bit differently. We don't have to change everything all the time and all at once, but we do have to do things a little bit differently when plateaus happen and when regression happens. So you wrote this update. I thought I'd share our progress like some others have because I'm reading all these positive stories that's kept me going over the last year. When I joined, I was at rock bottom. I felt lost. I felt lonely, eating crap foods, and I'd given up on finally accepted my daughter had autism, and went to the GP to get her referred for diagnosis. This felt wrong and hurt my heart, but then I found Ninka and this wonderful warrior women on here. And then you go on to say, over the past few months, I've significantly changed our diet, our mindset, our lifestyle, calmed my nervous system. I was a wreck, and my nervous system has taken some calming. I feel so free and light now. I sleep so well. I'm not getting cross all the time. I'm so aware of myself, so in tune with my body and mind. I've forgiven people, and the people I couldn't, I have let go of. And you say, I make regular mistakes, try to walk in integrity. I take care of myself, and my daughter is following my lead. She was a wreck. She was also a wreck, so nervy, anxious, confused. Her memory was shocking. We would be sat at dinner and she couldn't remember what we had done that day, or she'd get mixed up with a different day. Now she tells my husband all about her day, still mixed up, but so expressive and excited, and remembers everything we've done. She has come so far. We've even managed to find her a tutor, and she sits for a whole hour a week and engages. She's never been able to learn, so this is huge. She's social, although still struggles to communicate, and so on. And then I said, let's have a round table conversation about this. And a week went by, and Holly wrote me and said, I don't think I should be coming on the call because we're having a regression with Ava. And I'm not one of those before and after stories yet. I don't feel like to be coming yet. It's too early. And tell me what happened then, since we are so honored to see that you're actually here with us today. What happened? What happens when these setbacks happen? What happened to you, and how did you pick yourself up?
Well, I spoke to you and you sort of kicked me up the bum a bit, really. And usually in the regressions, now when they happen, and they don't happen a lot, like we've had probably 2, maybe 3 this year, but one of them she didn't even go in. I just saw some signs. I was like, right, and I just have to, like, this journal, like I write in it every day, and sometimes like, oh gosh, it's like 10 o'clock, I need to go to bed, but write in your journal, Holly, do it, because I write, I got a full page, day a page journal, and I write what we've eaten exactly, and then I write fluids, and then I'll write bowels about my bowel movement, and Ava's got her own, and then I'll write about what's happened, like up, downs, have we grounded, how much sunlight we've had, and everything that you can think of, everything that's sort of at the end of the course when you do the reflection. I sort of sometimes do the reflection at the end of a phase, like I've just done the phase 2 one, and I'm like, I've got most of it in my diary already. I've already answered so many of these questions in the journal. So and so now when we go into a regression, I'm like, right, so usually I'm like, right, okay, I'm ready for this. Let's look at me. Let's start with me. Am I neglecting myself? Have I taken too much on? Am I connecting with Ava like she needs right now? And has she eaten something she shouldn't? Have I, it's really hard in summer when you're at the park, which she loves being at the park, and everybody gets an ice cream. And I'm like, no, but we've got some really healthy ones at home. And that took me ages to say no to her. I'd be like, oh, fine, we'll get you a dairy-free Magnum. At least it's dairy-free. I do that because I'd felt so bad. But now I'm like, no. And if I have made that mistake, especially when it really started getting hot in the UK, which it is, I was like, okay, you're really hot and bothered. Have a nice holiday. I'll get you the best I can get at this shop. But there's never any good ones. They're all crap. So, and then but this time I think I knew I'd taken too much on, because I've started a group for Ava, a home ed group, and it wasn't an autism home ed group. It was just a group for kids that struggle to communicate. And I've set one up because I wanted to find one, but you can only ever find like sort of autistic ones, which are fine, but I don't want to get into it's all about how to cope with it, and how, you know, and it's all about talking about it all the time. You know, it's not about trying to get it better. And so I didn't want one like that. So I've set my own up, which hasn't taken too much work, but it was this week. And then I had the podcast this week. And I was like quite nervous about it. So I've not taken too much on. I shouldn't have done it this week. And I've neglected myself, and I haven't slept. So I was nervous about both things. And last week it was gearing up to this week, and she ate gluten by accident at a barbecue last Sunday. And Ninka was like, check your diary, send me your diary, like, let's, and I looked, I was like, she's eating gluten, that's what this is. We have had like the cleanest of weeks, like most weeks are pretty clean, and as best I can do, you know, I'm still learning about diet, there's so much to learn, but I've sort of, you know, been really on it this week, and trying to, we've just been barefoot outside all week basically, and a much calmer week. Last week, sorry, and then this week I've done the same. I've neglected myself, and I can see Ava, she's okay, but I can see her just like having her head above water kind of thing, and it's like this, you know, it's like, and I'm like, okay, from now this group's going to go to the side and we're getting back into connection here. Like, so when a regression happens, you just have to think of these things, like what I used to do and what I started to do last week before speaking to Ninka was like, oh God, I can't do this. Oh God, what are we gonna do? Why is she doing this? Why is she in a regression? I'm trying so bloody hard. Like, you know, like I went into fight and flight, and I'm stressed about other things. Like, so I did everything that you need to not do. So when I spoke to you, I was like, okay. So I did the breathing exercises like 3 times a day. Like I was only doing them once, and getting my nervous system back down. I was doing the shower, and then a cold shower, and then wrapping myself in my duvet cover and getting into bed, like, so I could sleep better, and, you know, the natural tranquilizer. You know, and so I start from basics again. And I took, like you were saying, Gro, I talked to myself like, Holly, listen, let's do this step by step. Let's first do your diet. Holly, listen. Holly, listen. Are you listening? You know, I talk to myself. I'm, you know, like my inner child, like, I'm sorry I haven't been present. I'm here now. Like, you know, so regressions, what you've taught me, Nina, is so normal, and part of it, it's just how you deal with them. Yeah. And as you go on, I'm guessing they get less frequent because you stop them before you go in, you know? Yeah,
exactly. We need them to be more specific. We need them to become more, to step into expertise. We need them to remember. We need them to remember what we used to be, and we need them to take it to the next level, actually, too. And regression and plateaus shows our reaction speed and our reaction type. So do we react or do we respond to it and adjust? It's as simple as that. So thank you so much for clarifying that. I want to end this conversation by just firing some words your way that are topics that come up for new moms who are in the dark phase of autism. Their children are all over the place. They see symptoms everywhere. They go from practitioner to practitioner, diet to diet, supplement to supplement, without any lasting change. So just quick answers from you. When I say this is a keyword, what comes up for you if you were to talk to you the way that you were thinking back then? What would you need to hear? A couple of words or words of wisdom for them. So if I say picky eating, Gro, what do we need to say to moms?
Do the process. I mean, you know, just follow, seriously, like if you do the course, follow it step by step. That's all I can say, because I couldn't believe that my daughter could go from having a super skinny, very unhealthy body to a very, very healthy, strong body within only a few months. So that was all mindset. That was all mindset, really. I mean, that's so much easier said than done. Yeah, but yeah.
And picky eating for you, Holly, what's important for you to say?
Do you know what? We've never dealt, luckily, with much picky eating, but it's more from me, like the ice cream story, you know. I would always advise you give them the meal, and like I remember watching the videos, put the fruit in beautiful heart bowls. Like I always have fruit out in like nice little bowls on the table, and they're like, Mum, I need a snack. I'm like, okay, well, there's some blueberries on the table in a bowl. I'll have nice things out, and that is what you're gonna get. If you're hungry enough, you'll eat them. If you're not they're not gonna starve themselves, I don't think. Ava's always been really good at eating and trying, so I'm really blessed with that. But my other daughter, who isn't autistic, is picky. So I do sort of know, like, and I'm just like, this is what we're having. So if you don't want it, I'm really sorry about that. I can make it, you know, I could add something or take maybe one or two things out of it and do it step by step. You know, if you hide in some veg in a bolognese sauce or something, you know, okay, I'll take the carrots out this time and we'll just stick with the peppers and the courgettes. But next time, let's try the carrots, you know, let's do a deal and see how much you can eat, you know, and then we could have some almond yogurt that we made, you know, something like that. You know, that's perfect. What I do for the daughter.
Perfect. Overwhelm.
Is this to me? I'll say overwhelm. Oh no, I don't know. I'm getting overwhelmed now. Overwhelm. Take a step back. Step back is what comes in my head, and look at myself first.
Oh, you're freezing up a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were freezing up a bit. So taking a step back and prioritize yourself first.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. I'm wasting time by focusing on myself. I need to focus on getting my child to a better place.
Yeah. You ain't gonna get to a better place before you For real. I've been in this course for a long time, 14 months. I mean, but it really wasn't until I fully understood that things started to happen. I also just want to, can I just say something to what was said before? Because like, I don't want it to sound as if now it's a before and after story and we never see plateaus and regression here. That's not the case at all. But I see that the way my reaction to it is very, very different. Because I'm in such a calm place in my nervous system. So I'm just like, okay, you are freaking out completely. And this seems like the end of the world. And you have your mom crying on the phone and your best friend is sick. It's all gonna be fine. You know, let's just take it, like step back, you know, look at the whole picture and one step at a time. So I just wanted to say that. And also, what you were saying before, Holly, about your reactions to the children, like when you got really angry and aggressive, or at least very angry. I still, like last week, something really upset me and I yelled. But it was very different from the way it used to be. I used to be full-blown beast. Like I would often think of myself as a beast or a psycho. And so now I'm like, okay, you're an angry mom and you actually have a fairly reasonable reason to be upset about this. It's not like I just, you know, go the way I used to. Just wanted to clear that up.
Okay, that's Bertram. That's my son. Hello in the background. Okay, so the last one, procrastination. So when we feel I'm gonna wait, or I'm gonna wait and see, or I'm gonna try this first, or the procrastination part has been huge for a lot of moms. Do you have a final tip for moms who procrastinate and just can't seem to get things done or get started or comply or complete things?
I'm still a procrastinator.
Yeah.
But now, like, aware of it, you know, become aware of it and focus on it. And I make like affirmations for my wall, and my kids help me write them. It's good homemade English, like writing practice. And they, you know, I put them up on my wall or in my kitchen, and I'm like, breathing exercises, 8 a.m. and then breakfast. And it's something about it being up on my wall when I wake up, you know, or I really have to force myself to do the most simplest things still. But because I'm aware of it, I'm finding ways to deal with it. But that to me it works for me. Some reason, if it's on the wall, I'll listen to it. Then if it's just in my head, oh, I've got to do that, because there's a lot of things I've got to do that day. So it can get really mixed up in, you know. I'll put that, breathing exercises are easy, I can do them. And then it gets to half time, I'm like, oh no. And I put it off self-sabotaging, you know, because it's for me and I've got other things. It's on the wall, I do it. So
wonderful. For those who think, well, my child is too bad, or autism is for life, or it can't be turned around, do you have a final piece of advice, each of you, for the moms that are right in the middle of it, where it seems so dark that it seems like there is no way out? How can there be?
Well, there is a way out. There is a way out. And I've always felt that there is a way out. Even before the course, was something in me like, they can cure a lot and they can help with a lot. And, you know, I've even like alternative treatments can help with everything. But why is autism for life? Why is that full stop after that? I've always questioned it. And when I've heard you speak about it, Ninka, like, you know, and when it makes sense. If your body is the cleanest, healthiest it can be, and you're grounding and getting, you know, everything from the earth that you need, if you're doing everything right for your body, then things are going to improve, whether it's autism, whether it's depression, whether it's whatever it is, it's going to improve. And it does, like, it really does.
Thank you, Holly. And
I'll just say that the testimonials that we have in the group, there's so many, and they're very different. These families and these people find themselves in very, very different situations. Some are nonverbal, some are aggressive to the point where you think the only thing I can do right now is put that child in an institution. Some of them don't eat. Like, there's so many different testimonials of things changing completely. And maybe not within a year, maybe, you know, not even within a year and a half, but, you know, then 2 years, you see massive change. You know, maybe the child didn't go from nonverbal to 100% verbal, but there was such a big change in such a short amount of time that obviously what you're doing is, and as Holly says, yeah, totally agree. When you are living in sync with nature, which we're supposed to do, and you're grounding and you're eating appropriately for, well, your body type and everything else, like, obviously that's going to bring about change. But again, it really is just a matter of having these routines and having, like, constantly completing these little tasks, which you're doing in the course, which is really what makes it incredible. Instead of like we spoke about before, going to someone else and relying on that person to tell you what your problem is.
That's just the best way that I could even imagine us coming to the end of this conversation, this roundtable talk. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being in the family, for being in the sisterhood, for supporting other moms, and for sharing your story, because I know it's not easy, and you've taken time out of your day to do that. That brings hope to moms out there, and I just want to thank you so much for that. And for me, I'm so grateful to be a witness to your journey, to have gotten to get to know you so well. It's like being gifted sisters for life, and going through the most difficult phase we will ever go through as moms, having a child with autism and pulling that child out, doing that together. It's a blessing beyond description. So thank you so much for your time and for your story and for your life.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't say. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. As promised, here is my message, my strange, miraculous message for you at the end of this podcast. Honestly, sometimes at the moment when I'm talking to moms who've been in the program, they've done the autism turnaround, like the story of Gro and the things that happened to her severely autistic children within months should not be able to happen. It shouldn't be happening. And she even says in the interview, how is this possible? Here's how I believe it's possible. At the moment, that's what I feel after coming out, escaping the New Age spirituality, being saved by God and walking with God. I feel that because I stepped away from that and am now giving glory to God and doing as He's instructing me to do, bringing messages to these moms, following Holy Spirit guidance, I feel that He is sending moms and He's providing miracles that could not be happening unless He was involved. And so sometimes He takes us to extremes, sometimes He takes us to extreme symptoms, and He creates miraculous turnarounds, because that way we will know that that is something that only He can do. So I certainly feel that what we're doing in Barefoot Autism Warriors community and in the turnaround program is ordained. It is sacred. And I don't take credit for it. I am like a tour guide in a purpose, a life purpose that was chosen for me when I was instructed how to turn my son's symptoms around, and how I'm instructed now to help other moms do the same thing. If you want to know all about what we're doing inside the program, you can send me an email, contact@barefootautismwarriors.com. Write program in the subject line and tell me a little bit about yourself. The reason why I'm saying write me an email, and I'm actually asking you to do some work to do that, is that I know that if you're forgetting about this message tomorrow and you don't send that email, or if you feel that that's too much of a effort to put in, I know that I can't help you turn symptoms around, because I'm going to require much more than sending an email and taking that initiative if you want to go from where you're at now to where you want to be. Finally, a disclaimer: I'm not a practitioner, I'm not a healthcare practitioner, I'm not a medical expert, or I'm not here to replace that or even diagnose or treat anyone. This is strictly educational material, and any side effects starting from or stemming from following or taking the educational pieces of content that I share and turn that into something that you use in your life. Any side effects that might happen as a consequence of that, indirectly or directly, I cannot be held responsible for. This is strictly educational material. But with that said, I hope to see you on the other side. Go to barefootautismwarriors.com for more information. And I would love it. It really helps spread the news about this podcast and to change lives for autistic children and moms. If you like this podcast, if you give me 5 stars wherever you're rating your podcast episodes, if you write me a review, even better. That's a huge gift for me, for the community, and for the spreading of the word of the possibility to turn autism symptoms around. Until next time, take care.